And Secretary of the Cabinet confirmed the changes yesterday in an interview with this publication and said the President, already exercising his constitutional powers, has made the following transfers. He has not provided specific reasons for these changes. This is something we did see that happening. Now, Mr. Danstan Balawa, who replaced late Keith Muhakengizi as the permanent secretary, that is in the office of the Prime Minister, has been transferred to the Director for Ethics and Integrity, and he will be also replaced by Alex Kakoza. And Ms. Nacho said also that as the principal private secretary in the office of the Vice President, will now take the role of the permanent secretary in the office of the Prime Minister with the aim of improving efficiency. And that is something where we did see these transfers in those dockets have been able to mention to you taking effect. Now, last year, the Parliament's Public Accounts Committee, chaired by Mr. Mwanga Chivumbi, threw out top officials from the office of the Prime Minister over failure to adhere also the instructions issued before their interface with the MPs also in a session that was the proper OPM on queries raised also during the 2022-2023 financial year Auditor General's report. And the report highlighted the Iron Sheet saga, irregularities around the staff recruitment and how their salaries were structured. And also last month we were able to see the Minister for Relief and Disaster Preparedness underscored the government struggle with low donor funding also for the refugee programs. And Mr. Kakoza, who spoke to this publication in an interview yesterday, said he was also ready to work anywhere his boss assigned him to. And other also really transferred officers included Mr. Alex Okello, who is from the Director of Ethics and Integrity, who has been moved also from the Permanent Secretary, that's the Director of Ethics and Integrity, in the office of that's now the Office of the Vice President as the Principal Private Secretary. And Ms. Nachobe confirmed this and revealed that the President has also appointed Mr. Jen Mwesigwa as the second head of public service in the office of the Prime Minister. And this position, she noted, has been vacant for some time now. And that is how we did see these appointments taking effect. And Ms. Nachobe said the position of second deputy head of public service is not new, but has been vacant following the death of Hilda Musubira in 2022, who also had served in the position since 2018. And that is something we did see happening in there. And many people have been able to talk about this and wish them the very best as they take up these opportunities and as they take up these vacancies. We hope at the right time they will be doing the right service the country deserves, and wish them the very best. And amongst all these people whose names have been mentioned is really the Permanent Secretary, that is Director of Ethics and Integrity, that is Okello, whom I interfaced during also really a meeting in Arua City. This was a meeting also to see how the faith-based institutions can be able to solely operate without challenges in there, and many issues were raised during that meeting, which I remember also took place in Arua City, bringing together the clergy from the entire Western Nile sub-region. And this is something where we're able to start happening. But really, we don't want to wish them the very best as they moved their new also positions in. Now, this is something where we did see that happening. And if you look at some of the issues happening over the weekend, we were able to see, on Friday actually, one of the criminal gang leaders in Arua City in the names of Ali Tororo came out to apologize for the issues of criminality he has been doing. And remember, Ali has been on the run in countries of South Sudan and in Kenya, but now he has come back asking the authorities to forgive him and that he is not going to be doing any of these activities again. And he was forgiven, and the security also asked him to also bring other officials forward so that they can be forgiven all. But all in all, they want now to see them leave the issues of criminality. And Ali actually said he will be rallying the rest of the crew members to come out and also apologize so that they can also live peacefully. And now he is a free man, which also serves as an example to the rest who are still on the run, because most of these guys have been on the run outside Arua City. And this is also where we did see pressure from the youth advocacy groups, who also mounted pressure to arrest these members, as a number of them were arrested and taken to Arua government prison. And this forced those who also had not been arrested to flee the city, to escape, that is the neighboring countries of DRC. Others went to South Sudan, with others like Ali escaping up to Kenya. But now they're back, and now he's back. And we also want to say that we want to see him also now changing his lifestyle, as he has said. And he said he is going to be doing whatever it takes to live a decent kind of life, because he realized in criminality there's nothing new. He realized that there's nothing also really you can benefit out of it, except that you are just risking your life, one, in terms of prison, and secondly, you risk losing your life, which is the reality, because if you are caught up, we have seen scenarios where people have been banned, thieves have been banned down, and this is something which we didn't see happening. But now we are saying them leaving the criminality aside and doing what is really lawful is really very good for them, and we want to see that happening. But we are keenly following up on, and we are looking forward to see that also the likes of Ali and the rest change, and want to see them living a good life also in there, which is free from criminality, and that will be very, very much good for them to also really see how they can be able to really change their lives. And that is something which at the end of the day I really want to say we are keenly following up on, and want to see how that will, of course, will be ending. And remember, this was the task of not destabilizing the New Year celebration, and of course they ended peacefully. That means these people can change, and engaging them in such activities would actually do a very good job for them, and that would also really make sure that they end up also really, they end up as good people, because we have seen scenarios where people who have been known as bad also change, and that is something which at the end of the day we want to see that also ending in there, and that would also be very, very much good for us to see that ending. And that's really something which at the end of the day we look forward to also seeing happening. And now government also came out to defy court orders, refused the Gazette Lango Paramount Chief, and this happened on also the 3rd, where the government has rejected a High Court order to the Gazette engineer Dr. Michael Moses Odongo Kune as the Paramount Chief of Lango. Now, according to the Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development, that is Ms. Betty Amongi, the Attorney General has advised her not to comply with the court's directive, and that is something which we did see happening, where the High Court had annulled the election of engineer Dr. Odongo Kune as the new Paramount Chief of Lango on October 31st of 2024, citing that he had illegally ascended the throne, and the court also declared that Muzei Yosam Odur Ebi, the 94-year-old outgoing Paramount Chief, was still the legitimate leader of the Lango people. However, Ms. Amongi maintained that Muzei Odur Ebi had abdicated his throne in accordance with Section 8 of the Institution of the Traditional or Cultural Leaders Act of 2011, and therefore was no longer the Wanyachi of Lango. And this is something where we did see that happening. Remember, the issues of ascendment to the throne in Lango has been a challenge since last year, where we were able to see violence also really coming up at one point, which called for a directive of court, where court that make its own pronouncement. But now we are still seeing this happening. Now the dispute over the leadership of Lango Cultural Institution has been ongoing for several months, with both Dr. Engineer Odongo Kune and Muzei Yosam Obi claiming the throne. And to help the government implement the decision, Ms. Amongi tasked the court to provide her with evidence that Muzei Yosam Odur has regained his title as the Wanyachi in compliance with Section 5 of the Institution of Traditional or Cultural Leaders Act 2011, and the name also of the institution under which he regained his previous authority as the Wanyachi. However, engineer Dr. Michael Odongo Moses Okune, the former executive director of Uganda Road Fund, was elected as Lango Paramount Chief on March 1st, 2004, and the Ugandan government, through the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, gazetted him as the Wanyachi of Lango on June 14th of 2024. And that is something which we did see happening in Lango sub-region. But we shall still be keeping you posted on more of the developments slowly coming out in that area in there. And this is something which at the end of the day will be very, very much good for us to sort of be able to see that happening. But really, as we get move on, that's something which at the end of the day we want to see happening, and want to see how, of course, people will be also changing, and want to see how people, of course, will be living freely without also more issues happening. And remember, we are still counting down the days that is the opening of the new academic calendar, which also is soon to begin. But really, information we are receiving that in the seed schools we are going to be seeing a total of over 28,000 teachers be recruited across the entire country, because this government had established about 99 seed schools across the entire country, and I do understand that there is one in a rural city and in Ivu, which is also in Aliba, which is called Aliba Seed School, and we have another in also in Mariokolo, and other districts. But now we are going to be seeing a total of 28,000 teachers be recruited in these facilities, and this is really to make sure that at the end of the day, we want to see how this, of course, will be ending in there. Now, UPDF pays tribute to fallen journalist Kasasira, and now the Colonel Chris Machezi had already saluted the casket of Risdale Kasasira as he paid tribute to the fallen journalist when he handed over the microphone to Colonel, that is Alan Kitanda, and both had spoken glowingly glowingly of the late Kasasira, with Majezi noting that the security reporter never also led this excitement of being well-connected government officials, and coming upon also security news tips gets ahead of him. Now when Senda walked over to the casket for a formal salute, Kasasira also was not a soldier, but in death, he was being saluted by the men in uniform like he was a foreign combatant, and this is something which we did see happening in there. Now the Uganda Post Defense Forces, led by Colonel Dewa Kiki, the Deputy Defense also spokesperson, paid a glowing tribute to Kasasira, to the late artist Kasasira, who died on Friday in a road crash. And this is something which we did see happening in there as he was traveling with his family member in a Toyota Fielder. And this is something where we did see him also where he was involved in an accident. And Mr. Kasasira was laid to rest at his ancestral home in Itara village in Rubaga, also really Kashari County in Barara district on Sunday, where also nearly spent nearly 2 decades of covering also security matters, and UPDF was a combatant, also combat missions in Somalia and DRS Congo and Congo Brazzaville, and this is where he had moved. That is also these countries to make sure that he reports to the Uganda what is happening in there, and really want to also congratulate him for that milestone, but really want to wish him also really to rest in eternal peace, because he has done his part. Really want to wish him also to rest in eternal peace in there. To the family, we pray that God gives them courage, because he has been a breadwinner. Just imagine also really being at that capacity. It means that he has been doing something good to his family members. Now, Kano Akiki revealed that the late Kasasira had given him a premonition ring before the fatal accident, and calling it the sixth sense. Akiki said he had not spoken to Kasasira for some time when the journalist rang him up days ago to inquire about how he was doing. And Kano Magezi, public relations assistant, that's the chief of defense forces, said the late Kasasira also will defend his employer, Del Monte, an independent daily, that President Museveni has also often left as any paper whenever the state also was having issues with their reporting, and that means he had also defended this paper where he was working. Now seeing also the large presence of government officials and the boots of uniform and the boots plus uniforms at the Tara village, the all suspicion also that the late Kasasira had to live with he was also a spy would come back also into question, and that is something which we did see happening in there. And it's something Mr. Charles Wangui Ampaji, the host also of the NBS Premium Talk Social Frontline, also dwelt as he spoke on behalf of the Fourth Estate at the funeral, and that is something which we did see happening in there. Mr. Manguya, who was Kasasira's editor, Del Monte, said also the deceased had connections also in government, and the military made it very difficult to do his job, and that is something which we did see happening in there. And this is something which at the end of the day really it becomes a challenge when people start having these thoughts about you, that you aspire, you're this and that. It becomes a challenge, most especially in the journalism fraternity, where people will also be shielding information off from you. Fellow journalists even will be able to sort of shield information from you, and really I want to show you that it will be very, very much difficult for you to obtain information. But all in all, he stood his grounds and still delivered the expectations in that. Now to also Ms. Mabala and more than a dozen journalists who were also in Etara to see off Kasasira. This man was also who touched their lives, not also one who induced suspicions. And Mr. Monguia also said that deceased was a humble man before he was also humble before fellow journalists in there, and that is something which we did see happening in there. We want to also wish him the very best, as also he goes to rest in peace in there, and that's something which at the end of the day is worth also being appreciated and for the good job he has done to the country. And many people described him as a gentle giant who defined responsible journalism, and we were able to also hear many people say that he wasn't excited despite all having all these connections. He always lived that is also as a down-to-earth life, as a down-to-earth life, and that's really something which we did see happening in there. And really, we shall be keeping you updated in case of any developments or in line to that in there. But all in all, we also want to ask you, the road users, to be very much vigilant, avoid issues of speeding, avoid issues also really of being also really thrown away. Let the vehicle also be in good conditions, because each and every time we're always talking about a life of a VIP dying in an accident, which is really something very, very much wrong in there. But really we are hoping that at the end of the day, more lives should not be lost. And that's really something which at the end of the day is also really where I want to ask now police to make sure that they also really check the vehicles that are on these roads, because it feels bad for us to be talking about deaths coming out as a result of accidents. Every time when we come here and talk about accidents, it really feels very, very much bad. And now police in Amnat investigate the death of 12-year-old boy who was found hanging on a tree, and that's something which we did see very, very much bad, where the community of Morongole cell has been thrown into pandemonium after a 12-year-old boy was found dead hanging from a tree in what police are investigating also as a case of suicide in there. Now the incident also has ignited a wave of public outcry, with the residents questioning the circumstances leading to the boy's death. But really, why would a 12-year-old boy, a toddler, a teenager, really also really commit suicide in there? But this is something which at the end of the day, we want to also really ask ourselves. Now, according to police report issued by Inspector of Police Michael Ongole, the Karamoja police spokesperson, tragedy unfolded on the night of January 4th, 2005 during a New Year celebration. That's at the home of also the deceased, and that is really where family members and visitors had gathered to mark the beginning of the new year with food and festivities. And according to an eyewitness who preferred anonymity, at around 6 p.m., the boy identified as the son of Gwangole Philip approached him at the kitchen to request for food. The cooks allegedly refused, stating that the visitors had to be served first. And this is really where it feels very, very much bad, because as a young boy, our culture is sometimes very bad. This boy might have been hungry indeed, and you refused to give him food. Really, why would, maybe if you are told he had been rejected, maybe supper the previous night, why wouldn't such a person really commit suicide? And this goes back to families. We may be talking about this in Karamoja, and tomorrow we hear about the same story happening in our villages of Western Nile sub-region, in other parts of the country. So it means we need to do something in terms of also making sure that food must be served first for people at home. We always say charity begins at home. If charity begins at home, why don't you then start serving food for the people at home first? Now, the boy left the home at around 8 p.m. and was not seen again until the next morning, when residents found his lifeless body hanging from a tree approximately 100 meters from the family home in there. Now, the incident has sparked widespread condemnation from community leaders and residents. Many are demanding accountability from those involved in mocking the boy, and activists also weighed in calling for more awareness and support for mental health among minors. And investigation continues, and the community remains shaken by the tragedy. Calls for justice and sensitivity in handling cultural matters have grown louder, with residents also urging authorities to prioritize mental health of children in vulnerable communities. And this is really something which at the end of the day, we want to say we also have to check on the children. The children actually are very, very much important. If we don't check them, then that's how we shall be seeing many of them also committing suicide, which is really very much wrong. But all in all, we are saying this shouldn't happen. We do not want to see many children also losing their lives in there, and that is really something which at the end of the day we would also want to see ending in there. Now, moving away from that, heading to Karamoja, we are seeing the women there say many cultural practices are hindering realization of their rights, and they are still complaining of their rights also in that. Now, women in the Karamoja sub-region are raising alarm over the deep-rooted traditions and the practices that continue to marginalize them and effectively also exclude them from their critical development opportunities. And women activists in the region have highlighted the grim reality when the cultural norms deny women the right to speak in traditional meetings or inherit land in there. Now, many women say they are treated as beasts of burden, expected to shoulder the weight of family responsibilities such as building homes, fetching water, preparing meals, and caring for the children. And that's something which we did see happening. Now, the inequality is further compounded by widespread gender-based violence, with many women saying also they experience physical abuse, such practices, and activists argue that also they have widened the gap in women participation in the region's development, and this is where they feel they have been neglected out. Now, for women in Karamoja, if you look at a typical day, it involves walking long distance to fetch water, often from scarce and unreliable sources, before returning to prepare meals for their families and care for the children. And that is really how a Karamoja woman is supposed to be living, which is not any different from also really what's happening from a Lubara woman or an Aluru woman. And this is something which at the end of the day, many of the women in Karamoja have been also declaring in there. Now their endless domestic tasks leave no time for women to engage in education, income generating activities, or community development programs. And this is really something where the activists in the sub-regional soil of Karamoja are feeling very, very much burdened. And now the cycle of marginalization begins early for many girls who are raised to assume household responsibility rather than also attend school. Now this perpetuates also the exclusion of women from the leadership roles and also economic opportunities in the community. And now activists in Karamoja are urging immediate reforms to address these long-standing inequalities. A critical demand is the right for women to own land, a privilege also already currently denied by the tradition, and many widows and single women are also forced off their lands, left vulnerable and also without means to support themselves or their families. And this is something which at the end of the day is still happening in Karamoja, where the women in there are now demanding for equity in terms of solely addressing all this. Now, in addition to land rights, activists are calling on the government to provide agricultural resources such as tractors to ease the physical burden on women and to promote also farming as a sustainable livelihood. And now that's something which we see where activists emphasize that addressing these challenges will require collaborative efforts between also the local leaders and government agencies to make sure this is thrown away. Now, until then, the women of Karamoja continue to bear the brunt of these inequalities. Their voices calling also for a society where their rights and contributions are valued. And this is something which we still see being demanded by the women of Karamoja, and we shall be looking forward also to see how, of course, that will be coming down. But as we get move on, let's now look at also some of the stories happening elsewhere, and we hope also that at the end of the day, their rights also can be able to be filled. Now moving also away from Karamoja to Namayingo, where we're able to see Namayingo leaders hail PDM's impact that's on poverty eradication, and as we're talking about other areas not yielding very much on PDM, in Namayingo district, leaders have expressed confidence that the parish development model is significantly impacting on livelihoods, lifting thousands out of poverty. And the optimism follows reports of steady progress by 80% out of the 10,351 beneficiaries who have received the funding under the program. Now the government has also come to talk about the PDM, which is also its own initiative, is aimed to also driving also economic transformation at the level of grassroots, which has also been a lifeline for small-scale entrepreneurs in the Namayingo district. In there, now beneficiaries have utilized the funds to establish and expand enterprises, particularly in poultry keep farming, which has become a thriving sector in the district. Now, Isma Kisabira, one of the beneficiaries, shared this journey of transforming $1 million also shillings grant into sustainable also business. And that is something where we also want to say the rest of the farmers in not only in that district of Namayingo, but the entire country must also embrace turning the 1 million government gave them into becoming maybe 20 million capital, and that will also be very, very much good for the rest of the farmers in there. Now retired Lieutenant Kibiria Ambako, is Senior Presidential Advisor on Mobilization, emphasized the program's role in reducing poverty nationwide. Now with such stories emerging across the country, there is growing hope that the PDM will help Uganda achieve its poverty alleviation goals. And as Namayingo district continues to embrace the PDM, local leaders and beneficiaries are optimistic that the initiative will bring sustained economic transformation to the community, empowering households and fostering a brighter future for all the people of this country. And this is really something which I also want to ask you, the viewer, to also interest yourself in. If you got the 1 million Uganda shillings, you must be making sure that you assess yourself that at the end of the day, I borrowed this money. What have I done with it? What do I intend to do with it? For those who have just gotten the money, how shall I refund this money back? These are the questions you should be asking yourself. And also getting this money and just chew it and think that it's government money, it's campaign money, which is really not the right also the issue for us to be having in our brains in there, which many people are still carrying on, thinking that this money is also really government money. But we're saying it's not, it's really government money, yes, but it's money meant for you to also improve on your livelihoods. And that's really something at the end of the day we look forward also to making sure that you are not left out on, and want to see how, of course, you can also be able to change your life from the poverty level to becoming a rich man through the PDM. And this goes back to whoever got this money also to interest themselves in thinking of how they will be also refunding this money in the best way in there. That's really something which at the end of the day, we look forward also to making sure that this also will be very, very much good also for the people also in the country to also make sure they interest themselves in making sure that they also refund the monies that they borrowed under the PDM, which is also a government also program aiming also to improve people's livelihoods out of poverty in there. And that is where we shall be pausing with the discussions as we get move on. But as we are still remaining with more minutes as we want to see also what's happening and remember the issues also already happening within the Uganda Muslim Supreme Council have been going on. Now, Gulf Arbitration Court tells warring Muslim factions. That's another story which we are seeing also already coming out also from court, where the High Court in Kampala has advised the warring Muslim factions fighting over the alleged mismanagement and poor governance at the Uganda Muslim Supreme Council to seek arbitration. And the Muslim also factions are also in conflict over recent resolutions passed at an extraordinary general meeting. And while passing his ruling on January 3rd, Justice Douglas Karekona Singiza reasoned that Muslim also Arbitration and Conciliation Council demands the disputes among Muslims and be first arbitrated before seeking court redress. And that is still something what we did see happening in there. That means they still have to go for arbitration, where they also have to discuss before coming out in there. Now that's something where we did see where the parallel Mufti Sheikh Abdallah Semambo, who's opposed to Sheikh Muwaji, has vowed to appeal against Justice Singiza's ruling, and he also urged Ugandan Muslims to disregard the ruling, and that's something what we did see happening in there. Now the case among others involved Mr. Udaya Babire, Mr. Burhan Namanya, and Mr. Hussein Simba, Vice Uganda Supreme Council, where Justice Singiza was faced with 2 review questions arising from the earlier judgment of Jinja High Court judge, that is Farida Bukirwa, that also really involved winding up the Uganda Supreme Council. Now Justice Bukirwa had in her decision also saved the winding up of the Uganda Supreme Council, but ordered the parties to hold an extraordinary general meeting at a neutral place to resolve their matters. Now now it's an extraordinary meeting that the group opened also to oppose Uganda Supreme Council, voted him out, and elected Semambo as the new caretaker Mufti. And that's something which is happening, which of course didn't go on well with the section of the leaders. And in reviewing the Jinja also decision, Justice Singiza was faced with 2 questions of whether a court in Kampala could review what was decided in Jinja and whether there was good reasons to do so. And now Justice Singiza held his court in Kampala that had powers to handle the dispute. Also, he found good grounds to review the decision solely because the Constitution of Uganda Supreme Council has a clear arbitration clause, and that is really something what we did see happening in there. But this issue has for long been there, most especially coming out also in there, and really many people have been talking about that. And really, how shall we also be able to look at that? Many people that's also where many people have been asking themselves, and we look forward to also having that. And really, if you look at that decision, many people already have been able to question that. But really, we are keenly following up on. This is still a developing story, and at the right time, we shall be also letting you know of more of those issues. And that's still something what we are still going to be looking forward to. And at the end of the day, we shall be able to solely address some of those areas. And that's really where we're going putting that down the discussions with as we get to move on. Family seeks help for 14-year-old son paralyzed by spinal injury. This is another story that we are seeing on the morning papers, where a family in Kisoro is desperately seeking for help for their 14-year-old son, Munirwa Simon, who has been bedridden with a spinal injury for 2 years. Now, the injury occurred when Muniruva was swept away by flood waters in Urusila sub-county, shattering his backbone and leaving him paralyzed from the waist downwards in there. And that's really something what we did see happen. Now, Muniruva's father, Mvuyekure Godfrey, 35-year-old, also says that he sold all his belongings to pay for his son's also treatment and is now left with nothing. He digs other people's gardens for a living to support his 4 children, that including Muniruva. In now the family struggle began 2 years ago when Muniruva was swept away by the flood waters while trying also to cross a river, and he was rushed to Mutulera Hospital in critical condition also, and later transferred to Mulago Hospital for surgery. However, also despite undergoing surgery, Muniruva's conditions worsened, leaving him paralyzed and in constant pain. And his parents revisited Mutulore Hospital for consultation, and we advised to seek further review at Mulago Hospital. And Chimpaye Fiona recalls approaching the Minister Sarah Nyirabatse for help, but unfortunately she passed away before she could assist him. And now that's something which we did see happening in there, and we hope at the end of the day, well-wishers can also be able to come to the rescue of this family that is seeking for help. Now, Dr. Afsa Fred, an orthopedist at Mutolera Hospital, recommends that Muniruva see a spinal surgeon at Mulago Hospital for further review and treatment. And that's something where we did see now the family is desperate for help. They are appealing also to government, non-government organizations, and well-wishers to assist them in getting the necessary treatment for their son. And that's something which we did see happening in there. That means whoever is also really willing to help this family can also be able to solely reach out for them in there and make sure that they get the kind of support for this young boy who also was swept away by floods in there, because it may be him tomorrow, it may be another person, and really, God forbid that. But we are still saying giving help to whoever is in need is really very, very much important. We should therefore always prioritize giving help to whoever may also need our help in there. And that's something which at the end of the day is very good, but we hope also that is where we shall be seeing that happen. Now, public officers, Chiabazinga unite to fight poverty in Busoga sub-region. And if you look at Busoga sub-region, as we get to summarize this half of the hour, you get to that it's one of the regions only with also high rates of poverty in the area. Now, police officers in Uganda have joined forces with the Chiabazinga, William Gadula and Nadiope IV to tackle also the escalating poverty in Busoga sub-region. Now, the Busoga public officers from also Forum has signed a memorandum of understanding with Chiabazinga to contribute also to sub-region's socio-economic development, and despite also endowed with the natural resources like fertile arable land and abundant resources, Busoga sub-region also in the 2019/2020 report by Uganda Bureau of Statistics, River Busoga was among the top 5 sub-regions, hindering also Uganda's achievement from also of middle income status by 2020 in there. That means it is still a poor sub-region, and that means these public servants and officers who have joined hands to make sure that they support the cause of development are actually doing a great job. And that's really something where we want to see now Busoga become also already one of the regions already with money in there. That's really something which we shall be also at the end of the day looking forward to. And we hope also that the poverty in the sub-region can also be able to reduce in there as we get to move on. And really, as we get move on, so many issues going to happen. And if you look at it on a Monday, you get a lot of issues that are being reported in there right from Friday. And really, we say as we get back from the weekend, I hope you, as the viewer, had a wonderful weekend in there. But this is where we are now going to be looking at the issues of politics. And if you look at politics, definitely you realize that it's happening, where people's names are being fronted, where the leaders or those are in those positions are on ground, moving also to see how, of course, they can be able to solely attract the attention of also those who are also within their areas in there. And that's something which we are still looking forward to, and we hope at the end of the day we shall be also looking forward to that. Now, suspect confessed to forging Janet Museveni's signature, and that's sort of according to information we're getting from court, where the Buganda Road Chief Magistrate Court presided over by Ronald Kaizi on Friday had that the 24-year-old Kenneth Niwamanya confessed to forging the signature of the First Lady and Education Minister Janet Kataya Museveni, and while testifying in court, 37-year-old Niwabine Nirasirisio, an officer under Special Forces Commander that is also in the First Lady's office, revealed Niwamanya confessed to forging the signature. And while testifying in court, 37-year-old Niwamanya, also an officer, also did say that now Nirasio added Niwamanya's motive for creating the forged letter was solicit funds for an event held also for October 2025 at Kololo ceremonial grounds in there. Now, however, Nirasio's testimony was cut off short when he requested to play a voice recording of Niwamanya's confession. Now, the prosecution led by Ivan Kaizi requested an adjournment to transfer the voice recording to a compact disc and serve also to the defense lawyer, and the court granted the request, postponing the matter to January 24th for further hearing in there. And that's something which we did see happening in there. But really, why would you forge a signature of a person of that high caliber, yet you know that this also will be known. Even if you forge the signature, still it will come out. People will still be able to know that you forged the signature, because the criteria to get the signature of the First Lady is always there. That means to the young people who may also want to be desperate to get money, let's be mindful of how we want to get the monies, because the money you're getting may also land you in trouble, which may not be very, very much good for you and your family in there. But really, all in all, we hope that you are also really taking good care of yourself through not also engaging in bad practices. With that, we come to the end of this first half. When we return back, we shall be looking at more stories. And of course, summarizing the day, as always, will be with the world of sports and international stories. But for now, we are taking a short commercial breather. When we get back, the discussions will be able to follow. My name is Farish Majid. Stay tuned.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Unwrap your holiday cheers with Start Times this Christmas season. Starting the 15th of November, simply pay your monthly subscription for the next bouquet and automatically enjoy content on the next higher bouquet, plus a chance to win exciting prizes. Your gift box contains variety of local entertainment and fresh shows, exciting cartoon and fun kids entertainment, mega superstars, local and international, a memorable trip to Spain to watch a La Liga match. And that's not all. Lots of prizes to be won, including ZTE Nubia smartphones with free 15 GB Airtel data. Start Times gift that keeps on giving. Merry Christmas. This message is powered by ZTE Nubia. Better for all. Look out for StarTimes Solar to unwrap your lighting and entertainment experience this Christmas.
We wish you a Merry Christmas.
At only 700 shillings daily charge, get yourself a StarTimes S50 that comes with lighting, phone charging, strong lithium battery, radio with a flash port and a Bluetooth speaker. For more entertainment needs, get yourself a StarTimes S130 that comes with an extra 32-inch TV screen and 2 years free StarTimes subscription. StarTimes Solar, more than just solar.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Right, welcome back from the short commercial break. We are back into the final half of today's show, and this is still a KOKOLIRIKO live show on West Nile TV with me, Farish Majid. I hope you are having a wonderful time, and I know you must have also had a good weekend. And for those who had the best weekend, I really want to say you must thank the Lord. Meanwhile, for those whose weekend wasn't good, you could have fallen sick, you could have lost your dear ones, we are still saying you all have to solely attribute this to God, because He is the master planner of both the good and bad. You must always thank Him for whatever happens also in there, be it good or be it bad. And that's really something where I want to sort of talk about. Now, starting off this hour, one of the biggest stories has also been about a maid who was seen torturing a minor, and now the maid has come out to plead guilty for the torture of the 4-year-old girl, and where she was sentenced to 35 also to many years in there. Now, the former housemaid, Princess Tumuhirwe, a 35-year-old, has pleaded guilty to charges of torturing a 4-year-old girl and causing her grievous body harm. Now appearing before Kira Chief Magistrate, that is Sharon Niwaha, Tumuhirwe faced charges also of torture from the December 27th attack on that happened at Chikoko zone in Namata Basel, Chirinya, Ward in Wakiso district. And this incident actually came out during the Christmas celebrations, but committed the crime that is before the eve to Christmas. Really, why would you, as a maid, entrusted to take care of these children and the family, also turn out to also become a perpetrator? And this is really something where it becomes very, very much dangerous. Now appearing before Kira Chief Magistrate, she was able to plead guilty, and Timuru also was last week begged the family of the victim and also Ugandans for mercy. Now awaits conviction upon her own guilty plea. Also really where she was also really seen, also really arrested in Kabale district, where she had also escaped. But really we are saying, why would you do such a crime? Even if we are disagreeing, even if me and you have issues, why would you really do such a crime? And that's really something at the end of the day where it becomes a challenge. Now investigations reveal that Muhire had worked as a housemaid for the victim's father, Michael Mwesigwa, for the last 4 years. And Mwesigwa, a single parent, since also really separating from his wife 2 years ago, hired Muhire also based on recommendations from the acquaintances in Kabale. And really, why would you really end up doing such a crime? oh, you were already something somewhere else, if at all we did not know, but really it becomes a challenge. And now the video shows to me repeatedly assaulting a child in bathroom, triggered also the widespread condemnation with calls for swift justice and type of penalties also for the child abuse case also in now Kampala Metropolitan, also the deputy police spokesperson, Assistant Superintendent of Police Luko Wesjire, assured the public that also the case is being handled with utmost seriousness to ensure justice for the victim. And Child and Youth Affairs Minister Balambaru Hagara lauded the police for their swift also action in hunting down the culprit, saying this is an act of violence inexhaustible solely, and we must also stand together to protect our children. That's really something where we need the Minister for Children, Balam, also really coming out also to talk about that is that in there. And really many people also expressed their utmost condemnation about the same matter, but we hope at the end of the day, more women should be able to sort of learn from experience, most especially those who are involved in issues of torture, because torture is really a crime. It's against human rights, and it's also against the rights of children, and that's really where we hope you also really have to do something when it comes to issues of also living free from child torture. If you look at torture, really you get rid of, so it's something also which also is against the law, and that's really where we hope you as the viewer is also working towards, and we hope at the right time you do something also to make sure that there's nothing wrong that happens also to the children that we are entrusted with, because if you look at Article 25 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, it prohibits also children also from being exhibited or being subjected from torture, and that's sort of where the Article 19 is sort of talking about violence, and of the Convention of the Rights of Children is to mean that all forms of physical and mental violence, also including injury and abuse, neglect or neglect treatment, also violence against children, also and physical or psychological and mental violence are all forms of violence we are talking about, and these are all against Article 19. So now Article 21 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda says that all persons are equal before and under the law in all adherence or in all spheres of political, economic, social, and also cultural life. That means there's no person who is supposed to be subjected to torture, and torture is really a crime which also we must also condemn in our society in the, if at all we want to avoid facing the roughness of the law, and that's really something which at the end of the day you as the viewer should also be able to desist from. You must desist from issues of torture, because torture is really a crime which also can lead you to jail. And just like this lady, we hope you are also not engaging also in those practices, and that's really something which at the end of the day becomes also very, very much good for you as the viewer to also interest yourself in. And we hope at the right time you are working towards living also really a violence-free society, and that's really the kind of society we're praying for. Because if you talk about violence, there are many forms of violence that we talk about: violence against children, violence against families. All in all, we are saying this shouldn't be the case. We must make sure that these cases not also really go on as we get move on. And next year, we don't want to talk about these cases, and I believe experience should serve as a warning or as a reminder to whoever also will want to engage in such practices in there. But really, all in all, it's really where we hope also as the viewer, you are working towards living a society where children should be protected also from issues of violence, and that's really where we are going to be posing the discussion. Now, in that discussion aside, traders in Kapchora are counting huge losses after market fire, and this is really something which we are seeing following days after what happened in Europa Park, and really we were able to see some people being trapped up on top of the rooftop, and vehicles also trapped up as fire gutted one of the rooms also in Nyumba Kubwa, which is in Europa Park in Kampala, and the cause of the fire remained unknown, but reports also indicate that the fire could have been caused by a stove that was being used also for cooking in one of the rooms also in there that resulted in that fire in there. But really what we're saying is, let's make sure that issues of also fire do not also happen, because many of the times we have seen people counting losses in Kampala and in other parts of the country as a result of fire. But we are saying this is something also we must also encourage people to be vigilant on, so that also their lives already and their property also is not risk in there, and that's really something which also we want to see end this year. Now, smuggling will send you to hell, Museveni tells Busia residents, and if you look at Busia, which is actually one of those areas bordering the neighboring Kenya, we did see His Excellency Kaguta Museveni issuing a stern warning to residents of Busia, cautioning them against smuggling, which he says suffocates the economy. And if you look at issues of people and districts living along the border points, issues of smuggling are always very, very much high in those areas. But we are saying, let's see an end to smuggling at also the broader perspective. And I really feel, if at all, smuggling could be dealt with at the top level, where the presidents of the two nations should sit together and talk about how best the value for money can be also adjusted, and then that's when we shall be seeing an end to smuggling. But other than that, I don't want to show you smuggling will still remain a great concern. Now, Mr. Museveni emphasized that smuggling hurts local industries, preventing them from employing people who could also contribute to revenue of the government, enabling also it to provide quality services. And that's something which we did see where Mr. Museveni made the remarks during a brief address to a crowd gathering along Customs Road in Busia Town Council, where he had also returned from also presiding over the Pinyiluo cultural event. That's in Sia sub-county in the western part of Kenya in there. Now the president warned that those engaging in smuggling risk missing out also in heaven, saying those who are smuggling, you will never see heaven, paradise, and also your journey is to hell. However, local leaders such as Busia Municipality Member of Parliament Geoffrey Macho view the cross-border trade. Macho also has urged Uganda Revenue Authority to stop impounding also goods brought from Kenya, arguing that the residents already are enjoying privileges due to their border location. And that's something which we really see happening in there, where the issue of smuggling in Busia, also a complex with Busia, which is complex with border, also porous border points, weakening also Kenyan shillings, and also lack of harmonized taxation policies, contributing a problem. And now the URA has recovered over shillings 10 billion from impounded goods also smuggled through porous border points in Kenya, with goods including cement, wheat flour, cooking oil, second-hand clothes, and Pakistani rice also, which among other goods that have been very, very much impounded, coming in from Kenya into Uganda in there. And this is not a challenge only for Busia. The same challenge happening to all the neighboring districts, solely bordering countries. For instance, in Western Sub-region, we have districts like Arua and part of Koboko, which also have some border points in there. But all these areas are facing challenges when it comes to smuggling. And to combat smuggling, the URA is considering deploying drones for aerial surveillance and tracking smugglers, and the tax board also called for increased vigilance and cooperation also from the public to also report suspicious trade practices. And that's really something which we didn't see happening in there. But as we move on, I really want to say the issue of smuggling, which has been a great challenge, should be dealt with also a new approach, which I feel is by the top leaders who can be able to do this. I really feel the leaders are the best who can do this, and to make sure that issues of smuggling in this country can be brought down. And really, as the viewer, you can also share your opinion on how we can be able to end smuggling in this country. I really want to say it will be very much important to share this with the rest of the viewers, and we move on. And really moving on now to look at some of the international stories as we're just counting down a few minutes. Millions hit by huge winter storm as 7 US states declare a state of emergency. And remember, in the United States, we are now seeing the weather is changing, where these people are now living in extreme cold, where we are talking about the winter. Now more than 60 million Americans across more than 30 states in the grips also of a huge winter storm that could also bring the heaviest snowfall and oldest temperatures in over a decade. Now a polar vortex has brought frigid weather down also from the Arctic and to the central US, with extreme also weather conditions accompanying it. Now thousands of flights are delayed or cancelled, main roads cut, and also schools shut as a result of the storm. And that's where we are seeing also a declaration of an emergency coming out from the state of US in there. Now blizzards expected to bring also without also conditions to Kansas and Missouri, where a state of emergency has been declared. Now a state of emergency has also been declared in the states of Kentucky, Virginia, West Virginia, Arkansas, and parts of the New Jersey, where these areas are experiencing the climate change, where the weather is extremely too cold. And that's where we talk about winter. Now with changing climate that has been worsened, and I really want to show you in the US right now, people cannot move because roads have been cut, and flights which also is set to move different places have been delayed or have been cancelled. just because of the weather, and that means we must also make sure that issues of tampering with the climate do not also happen. Now the weather is expected to begin easing on Monday, which is today, where they can now find the forecast of also of the areas of BBC, and that means they should be able to solely now know whether the issues are going to be changing or not. But as we can be able to see, vehicles are being covered by snow in those areas where the roads cannot be seen. It means it is really a critical condition for the people in the US in there. And for those who are not also witnessing issues also of such climate changes, let's make sure that we not also tamper with the climate, like how we have always been warned. That would also make sure that we live peacefully in there. Now Hamas lists 34 hostages. It may also be free under ceasefire. Another story that we are seeing where a senior Hamas official has shared with the BBC at least 34 hostages that the Palestinian group also says that it is willing to release in the first stage of a potential ceasefire agreement with Israel in there. And now it is unclear how many hostages remain alive. Now among those named are 10 women and 11 older male hostages aged between 50 and 85, as well as young children, with Hamas previously also already said they had been killed in an Israel airstrike. In now a number of hostages that the Hamas also says are sick are also included also already on the list. Now reports from Hamas around Gaza, Israel also already air strikes killed more than 100 people. They are also over the weekend in there. And that's really where we talk about issues of dangers of war, but today we still see this happening. Now the Israel Prime Minister's office has denied the reports that Hamas had provided Israel with a list of hostages. Now ceasefire negotiations resumed in Doha, which is in Qatar, over the weekend, but the talks also do not appear to have made significant progress yet, and we are still following up to see how, of course, the war in Israel also will be able to. Now a Hamas official told Reuters news agency an agreement to return Israel hostages will depend also on deal for Israel to withdraw from the Gaza and permanent ceasefire to end the war. And if you look at the issues already between Israel and Palestine, this issue has always been there, where many people have now been killed. And this is not the only war we are seeing also already attracting global attention. What about the war in Ukraine? All this has been happening, but really we shall be keeping you posted on more of that in our subsequent programs in there. But all in all, we are now seeing also the issues of ceasefire, which has also really been a demand for most of the international peace agencies, which have been demanding for a ceasefire. But now we are seeing that also happening, coming slowly, and we hope at the right time these issues slowly will be put to an end, and we want to see how, of course, the world will now live peaceful like once before in there. And that's really where we shall be pausing the discussions, and I really want to assure you that, as always, we summarize the day with what's happening in the world of sports. Now talking about sports, we had the number of games being played, and I really want to show you it being FIFA. Yesterday, we had a number of games played on card, right in the 4 Big League and other leagues as well. Now talking about the 4 Big League, where our interest of today is, we were able to see Buhimba beating Karo Karuji by 2-1. Busoga United also was able to beat Arua Hill by 2-1, adding misery on the team also already in there. And now Gaddafi went on thrash Bomber by 3-0, as Maida lost to Kataga by a goal to nil. And Tungasaze was also able to lose to Black's Power, and we were able to see on the Braga Football Club also really picking a 1-0 draw, a 1-0 also win, over Chiinda Boys, which had the red card in there. And that's another game that was seen at Albert Greenlight Stadium. And this game keeps on the Braga Football Club in a position which I must say is of steady progress. And that means we are still hopeful, counting down for at least a team from West Nile Sub-Region to make it back to sometimes Ghana Premier League next season in there. And the win also really is a crucial one that keeps on the Braga Football Club's hopes of qualifying for the next season, sometimes Ghana Premier League still alive in there. And this wasn't the only game. We also had a number of other games all played in there, and I really want to say that we are still counting down. And this game is also the one that is very, very much interesting. And we shall be seeing the game starting on the 8th, where we shall be seeing Calvary taking on Chige's Homeboys, as Gaddafi will be up in action against the Black Angels on the 9th. And on the 12th, we shall be seeing Black's Power taking on Gaddafi, as more of the standings will be coming on. Now looking at the standings of the 4 Big League, Gaddafi maintains the lead also in there with 26 points, as Black's Power also remain in the second position with 26 points, and Onipaka Football Club still kept it at the 3rd place with 22 points in there, and they are still in top 3 of the Southern Uganda for a Big League also in there. And we are still seeing how we shall be seeing also the team qualifying it. That's the Southern Uganda Premier League come next season in there. Meanwhile, in the red zone, we have Chigezi Homeboys, Busoga United, Arroyo Sports Club, and Maida as the last teams also which risk being also relegated in there. And that's something which we see happening. And we are still counting down to see how, of course, they will be making it down also in there. And that is how we shall be seeing that end. But today, in the Southern Uganda Premier League, we shall also be having games where we shall be seeing UPDF take on Express Football Club, as Soltilo Bright Stars will be up in action against Lugazi. And yesterday we had a game which also ended in a stalemate in there between Kitara Football Club and Wakiso Giants in there, and more details of that will be coming through in the Southern Uganda Premier League. Meanwhile, in the English Premier League, a number of games were played, it being a weekend. I really want to show you that many games also did take place in there. And on Saturday, this is actually where we had also really a number of issues being talked, and we were able to see Tottenham Hotspur losing by 2-1, that is to Newcastle, as Aston Villa also was able to beat Leicester by 2-1. Bournemouth did go on to beat Everton by 1-0, as Crystal Palace also really had a 1-1 draw with Chelsea, as Manchester City did go on to wallop West Ham by 4-1. Southampton also was able to lose in the hands of Brighton by 5-0, and Brighton was able to hold Arsenal to a 1-1 draw, which also really is among the games that we were able to see many people following up on over the weekend. And meanwhile on Sunday, we were able to see Ipswich settling for a 2-goal draw with Ipswich, and Fulham and Ipswich ended 2-2, and Liverpool was able to also settle for another 2-2 draw with Manchester United. And this is how we were able to sort of see some of the games over the weekend in there. And tonight we shall be seeing one game that's on card for the English Premier League. That's as Wolves will be taking on Nottingham Forest, and I really want to show you that this is also another game that you should be making it as a must-watch. And that brings us to the end of today's show, as more details of what's happening in the world of sports will be coming through on the Whistle Time with Owen Ezaga and Linda Susie from 2 to 3 p.m., where they will be giving it comprehensive and detailed analysis of what's happening in the world of news. That brings me to the end of today's show. I want to wish you the very best, and I will be bouncing back tomorrow for the same show. I'm out. Have a good day.